Hey, what's going on, people? Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. I hope you're doing well, mate. I really do hope that. And welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about Frank Lampard's comments on the new Chelsea ownership, Todd Boehly and co. What he really thinks. Frank, of course, speaks his mind a little bit more than our previous coach, Graham Potter, who comes up with the sort of, first and foremost, they're really nice human beings, which is lovely to hear from Graham Potter. But it's also good to hear a little bit more of the gritty truth, which Frank Lampard has offered us. I want to speak about that throughout this video, and of course we are playing a football match this weekend, so I will talk about that as well, and who I think should and will play, and how Chelsea will move forward generally. I've got a graphic for you to show later. Make sure you stay to the end and join me throughout this journey of this video. Of course, we're not in the office today, we're in the living room, man, hence the piano, the violin, the guitar. And there's a sleeping cat over there. Hopefully she doesn't jump up and ruin the video. So thanks for joining me. Please do consider becoming a part of the community here on Football Therapy by simply subscribing to the channel. And of course, if you choose to subscribe, you should hit the bell, because that's what notifies you when I upload. And yeah, drop a like and etc. All that jargon. Now, I don't need to tell you, Chelsea are in kind of big trouble at the moment. I'm going to sit a bit back for this one and get comfortable. We don't even need we do need a win, but more than that, we need a goal. We need to score a goal. Frank was asked about this, how do you score goals? And he sort of came down to, look, we can coach movements, we can do repetition, but of course it is confidence, it is having the cojones. I even spoke in a recent video about getting a fecal transplant from the Man City players to change the microbiome of the Chelsea players so they start scoring goals. This is where my brain is going out of desperation for my poor club Chelsea. Though I maintain positive. And to a lot of people's distaste, actually. I do get frustrated. A couple of games ago, after the Real Madrid game, I was really disheartened. I think that was probably reflected in my video. But generally, I remain positive for the future. And I believe it is going to be okay, ultimately. And again, I defer to what I've said before about the ownership, about how I feel. They of course want winning to be successful. They've invested a lot of money, rather badly. This previous upload from this morning, I spoke about Enzo Fernandez's extension and what that means and the implications of that. So feel free to go and watch the previous upload to learn a little bit about that as well, because it's making headlines yet again. But I do feel positive. Now, I wanted to make a video before I speak about the Brighton game in my lineup for that. I wanted to speak about this because I did find it interesting, because the way Frank spoke about the ownership, it wasn't like, oh, please give me the job. I think Lampard probably realises he's not getting the Chelsea job. He understands big coaches are interviewing for the job. Nagelsmann has been invited for an interview. Luis Enrique Martinez has already presented his dossier, extensive work presented to the Chelsea hierarchy to try and get the job. And while they're all doing this and getting ahead, as well as being, excellent managers with good credentials, of course Lampard's head's just in navigating to the end of the season. He'll probably think this is good for him because it keeps him in the public eye, reminds people he is a manager and he can represent a club well, which will do him favours in his career. But also, it will keep him in the good books of this ownership model. Generally, maybe 5 years, Frank's still, 44, 45? 5 years down the line, if he's had more success, he might think, I'll come back. He might think I'll just keep coming back, and maybe he's thinking that in his head. So you think maybe he'd want to cozy up to the owners, but I was intrigued at what he said. So he was asked, what do you think of this ownership model, and do you think they're ambitious? And he kind of took that question, he was really measured in his response, because the way people have spoken about these new Chelsea owners and ambition, it's almost been said as like a derogatory remark. Like, oh, they're ambitious, aren't they? Is like their own way of saying, oh, they're throwing money all over the gaff, aren't they? They want to spend a lot of money, but he was very thoughtful and philosophical and mindful in his response. He wasn't like, yeah, yes, they're ambitious. They're ambitious in a way, But he talked about, I know I was nearly swore there, derogatory, it's like a dirty word, the process, but he spoke about the joined up thinking and the communication. Now, I personally, thought this was an almost accidental, indirect dig at perhaps Roman Abramovich, because he says, look, with these owners, they talk, and they're communicative, and there's an open conversation. I'm sort of, this isn't verbatim what he said, but this is kind of what he's saying. He's saying, look, it's really important in the modern game, in modern football, in modern successful club structures. Well, there is that communication, the open conversation, and the joined up thinking and joined up planning from top to bottom. And he was praising that big time, just as I was been longing for this and praising that big time and longing for a structure, of course, since a structure has come in with Vivell, Winstanley, Stewart, the other geezer as well. There's so many, I forget them. And obviously, under Roman Abramovich, we didn't have that. He didn't say a word. Many Chelsea fans preferred that because you didn't have Todd Bowley bowling outside of a restaurant in Spain, probably half cut, saying we're going to beat Real Madrid 3-0. Which, by the way, I don't actually have a problem with at all. I mean, the more I've soberly reflected on that, I actually think it's pretty fun. And I like it. Why not? Just get amongst it and say, it's not that deep. So I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to speak about it. And yes, I agree. And one of the biggest frustrations in football for fans is the no communication, no obvious incentive from their ownership, and of course not spending money. We've been criticised for spending money of late, but FSG, the Liverpool owners, they hate the fact they only ever come out to talk when they're apologising for trying to join a Super League. The Cronkies at Arsenal, they've gone quiet, the Arsenal fans now, because they're top of the league, but for years it was Cronky out, Stan Cronky out, the Cronkies. They talk about all the American teams, but they don't spend money here, and they don't show their faces. Our owners spend loads of money, and they're at every single game. They're completely invested in Chelsea, and of course, the Glazers as well speak for themselves, So all these, American owners, the fan bases really don't like. Now, one of the main pitches from the Clear Lake Bowley consortium was, you always go back to the fans. You've got to be winning. You've got to have this model to be successful in football. And I really think Frank Lampard's, short comments on this segment of the post-match, pre-match presser was actually really quite telling. And like I said, I don't think it was an intentional dig. Or maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but Abramovich of course fired Frank, but there was a statement when he got fired, and I think he's the only ever manager to have a statement from Abramovich when sacked. But who knows? Anyway, let me know what you think about that. I do want to talk about this game we're playing on the weekend. We are playing Brighton, who are a very good team. They were absolutely stitched up last time out by dismal officiating. Who did they play? Was it Brentford or... Was it the 3-3 game, or was it the one after? Anyway, point being, I know they got stitched up massively by crap officiating. The PGOML, or the Pugmol, or whatever they're called, apologised the following day for poor decisions, but there was countless. They could have realistically been, had they won that game rightly, they could have realistically been dreaming of challenging for the Champions League. Now, people compared Chelsea to a Galactico Brighton early doors when we signed Potter and Cucurella and all these other players. But the truth is, right now, Brighton is the Galactico Brighton, and we are Brighton if purchased from Wish, which is, of course, is a very funny meme joke, but it's the truth. So, the truth is, we're not good, they are. We will be at Stamford Bridge. There'll be a good feeling because Frank Lampard's first game back at the Bridge as manager, again. But the truth is, he will be putting all eyes on the next game at the Bridge, which is, of course, against Real Madrid. We're down, but we're not out, really. If we score an early goal, then dare to dream. But we have to score goals. So I'll show you the lineup I've built. This is the lineup that I've built right here. I'm staying with a 3-4-3, not a 3-5-2, a 3-4-3, because, boys, we need to try and score a goal. Now, as you can see, I've gone for heavy rotation as opposed to continuity. because he needs to have a seat. He needs to see some other players in a competitive scenario, but at the same time, he needs to just rest as many as he can for what is a massive game, the only game left for us in the season, and we're already like 2 goals down. A couple of shocks in here, or maybe you might have a couple. Certainly Mendy in goal. Now, I'm putting Mendy in goal because if he plays well, then I think he plays the Real Madrid game as well. You don't have to rest keepers if they got, if they get a couple of days rest between games, they are fine. Of course, Frank brought in Mendy. Kepa did make 8 saves as against Real Madrid, or that would have been Wolves. 8 saves against Real Madrid, but at the same time, a lot of people are understandably not happy with Kepa. And I think at this point, you're down, you're out, it's the end of the night on the poker table, you got to start putting some all-ins and taking some risks and playing loose. And with that, I think Edouard Mendy comes in. And not only that, I think if he comes in, he kicks the ball around well, he makes a few saves, I think he keeps his spot for Real Madrid, personally. Now, of course, Koulibaly's been confirmed to be a few weeks out, which is frustrating. So Cucurella, I think, will play instead of him, annoyingly, in the Champions League. But Badiashile, who of course isn't registered for the Champions League squad, has to start at left centre back here. In terms of playing down the middle, I think Trevor Chalobah, he often plays on the right, but of course he's played CDM when he was on loan in League 1. He can play down the middle, in my opinion. I think he plays in the middle. And as a right centre-back, if Azpilicueta is fit, I think he should come in. But otherwise, if Fofana's good to go, then play him. Chilwell, of course, is banned from the midweek game, so you just play him here. There's no question there. He's a good player. He's in form. We still want to try and win games. And for the right wing-back option, you could go for something super offensive like Hakim Ziyech, or even, Raheem Sterling's played right wing-back before, I think. But I go with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He seems to be like our auxiliary sort of inverting. He can make a 3-man midfield sometimes and come in and help out what is a relatively weak double pivot here for me. But I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek will start at right wing back. And yes, Dennis Zakaria, I don't know the deal with him, like if there's any rules about paying more money or having to buy him or something. There was an early conspiracy about that, but he did play a few games. If he's fit and good to go, he's a conventional, like sort of good destructive CDM-y kind of player. And then if you want work rate next to him, tell him to be a bit more disciplined, but put Conor Gallagher next to him. Could be Mason Mount, but that would be for a double 6, and Gallagher's very much an 8, but because he, Tuchel at one point did think Gallagher could be that number 6. This is going to be such a hard game, but this is what I've gone with, and I've gone with a front 3. I've gone for a right winger, a proper right winger, not Hakim Ziyech. I think Hakim Ziyech is cooked. I think he's going to just be sold. I think it's pointless playing him. Noni Madueke is a good player. He's a dribbling winger. He can get an assist for a striker, an actual striker. Noni's in right wing. And my actual striker, of course, is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I nearly went with Datro Fofana. Give Aubameyang 60 minutes. If he looks good, if he scores a goal for the first time in 4 or 5 games, then you take him off at 60 minutes and say, well done, mate. You've earned yourself a start against Real Madrid or whatever, or at least half an hour against Real Madrid, and maybe like bring on Datro Fofana or something. And on the left, Misha Mudryk. You could say this with maybe Pulisic as well, but I've gone for Mudryk. I want to see him. He's really, really high octane, and he would do so well against Real Madrid. Remember, like Frank chose the exact lineup I chose, except he put in Sterling instead of Mudryk, and Sterling arguably was one of our worst players. So had Frank Lampard just watched my video, we might have got something there. So let me know what you think of that lineup I've built there. I think it could do bits. And let me know also what you think about Frank Lampard's comments on the ownership. So comment down below. And do this. Zing, like and subscribe. Thank you for supporting the content as always. And I look forward to seeing you, my dear sweet friend, very, very soon. Peace.